Hey everyone, this is the first episode of the podcast Echoes of Me. This podcast was inspired just to hold a space for myself. I'm someone that I process things by talking about it, and I felt that I could maybe use this space to process my insights, my experiences, my emotions, while maybe helping you guys learn something about yourself too. So, this episode is about 24 lessons that I've learned in 2024. Number one, and this is in no particular order, it's just 24 lessons that I've learned this year. Number one is be more private. I am an oversharer. I love speaking about my experiences, and the people that's close to me, they've known every single event that's happened in my life. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do feel that when you share things with other people constantly, you have a lot of influences, you have a lot of outside opinions that plays into your decision making. And sometimes what happened with me is it taught me not to trust myself because I constantly needed other people's advice or opinions or perspectives before I made a decision. And so I didn't trust myself enough to just feel what I'm feeling and make a decision based on that. Number two is rely on yourself for advice, which kind of leads into what I said previously. I was constantly just seeking advice from the people that was close to me. I valued their opinion, but what it meant, like I said, is I didn't trust myself then because I was always seeking advice. I was always going to everyone. I always felt that I needed to first hear what the next person had to say before I can make a decision. Number three, watch what you put out to the world. So I recently saw the podcast on the Diary of a CEO, and there was a woman and she was speaking about how you're constantly giving off social cues in your behavior. And sometimes you wonder, why does people always approach me, or why does no one ever approach me, or why do I get approached by certain type of people? So we start to wonder why we attract a specific type of person, and it's because of the subliminal messages that we are actually giving out when we are out in the world. So I've learned to just watch what I'm presenting myself as to the world. Number four, who you attract is a reflection of what you accept. Again, leads me into what I said previously. So before I kind of questioned why is it that I'm always attracting a specific type of person, and why is it that I'm not attracting people that I actually want to have in my life? I'm attracting people that I don't want to be surrounded by. And I actually had to sit and reflect and ask myself, is it actually them or is it you? Because most of the people that I actually didn't want in my life, I tolerated. I allowed them to be there. I gave them access to me. And I guess I just had to take accountability for my part in all that. Because sometimes you can't really help who you attract, but you can choose who you accept. Number five, prioritize yourself. When I was growing up, prioritizing myself was seen as selfish. It was a selfish act. To put yourself first, to put yourself above everyone else, it felt selfish and I felt guilty for doing it at first. But what I came to realize this year is when I put myself first, I'm a lot more capable of being there for other people. Like when you pour into yourself first, you're able to pour into other people. Before, I was kind of just pouring into other people. And my cup was never full. And so when I started just prioritizing myself, I was actually more equipped to help other people. Number six, allocate time for rest. and allocate free time. And the word allocate here is so important because I've been trying to manage my time better. So I would schedule out what I need to do for the day, for the week. And there are days where I just feel so exhausted, or I have this tendency to later on in the day, after I've done everything, I would just not sleep and take that time for myself because there was no time throughout the day allocated just for myself, just to rest. So I think it's important for me that I allocate time, I schedule time. This is time for me to just rest or to just do nothing or to sit on social media or to watch my guilty pleasure show. Just allocate that time, I feel is important. And then number 7, my ego is the reason I can't let go. So, my entire life, I've been struggling with the concept of letting go. And you see people on social media constantly speaking about it. And you feel so inspired when you hear this person speak about why you should be letting go and how you should let go. But the act of actually letting go is so difficult. It's not easy, especially if you have a specific attachment style, especially if you grew up being a people's pleaser. It's not easy to just like let things go or let people go. So, why I say that my ego is the reason that I can't let go is I actually sat with it. And I was thinking about the fact that letting go is my problem. But then I thought about my qualities and my values, and something that I really value is making an impact on people. And then what I came to realize is that me wanting to make an impact is the reason that I never let go, especially when it needed to happen a lot sooner than what I did. Because sometimes you have an encounter with someone, well, me particularly, I would have an encounter with someone and I would want to make an impact. And if I feel that at that point I have not made an impact or I'd just be forgettable to this person, I don't want to let go. I still want to hold on until I feel that that impact is made, and that is my ego talking. I'm not thinking about, is this person actually good for me? I'm not thinking about, what is this relationship doing for me? How is the relationship serving me? That's not of importance in the moment. It's just, will this person remember me? Have I made an impact? And that is why it was so difficult to let go. And once I realized and noticed that that was the reason, I think it became a lot more easy for me. So I think just figuring out what your qualities are and what your difficulties are, and see if the two actually have an association, if they have something to do with one another. Number 8, not everyone is meant to be in your life for a long time. Some just come to teach you something or a lesson. Now, this was very difficult for me because when I start connecting with someone, immediately in my head, this person is going to be there for a very long time. Whether it's a friend, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a relationship, just as soon as there's a connection is forming, a reality is created in my head that this person will be there forever or this person will be there for a long time. But that's not actually reality. That's just the reality that I create in my head. It's not actually true. And so I needed to learn that people are not always going to be there for a long time. And I just had to be okay with it, because before I wasn't. I was not okay with just thinking about a relationship and knowing that there's an expiration date. It didn't sit well with me. It made me feel uneasy until I experienced it. Until I watched people walk into my life and leave and just accept that I learned something from this person. we had something and it's okay that it's over. I think I struggle a lot with things ending, and it might be because I view endings not as ending or as something coming to an end, but more as abandonment. And that is why I was struggling with it before. But once I realized that it's not really abandonment, it's just, it's come to an end. It's no longer for you. Um, so, yeah. Number 9. The more you invest in yourself, the less disrespect you tolerate. For all the people pleasers out there, which I was one of them, so I get it. I never invested in myself and I never put myself first. And I tolerated a lot of disrespect. But once I started spending more time with myself, once I started doing what I love to do, once I started just investing in myself, naturally I wouldn't tolerate disrespect. Number 10, the importance of self respect. When you have self respect, a lot of things that you may have issues with, or a lot of things that you struggle with, kind of just like eliminates itself when you have self respect. Like your tolerance for disrespect. You surrounding yourself by people that don't value you. When you have self respect, those things you just naturally don't want to engage with. Number 11, isolation is important. I think before I used to isolate myself, and it was an unhealthy coping mechanism, feeling that I'm just alone and I only have myself, so I tend to isolate. But especially during COVID, that period of just being with yourself, just, and not just being in isolation, like being able to just sit with yourself, being able to go out with yourself, to just go for a walk, to go to a restaurant, sit down and eat. This is something that I couldn't do before. I couldn't sit down in a restaurant alone and eat. It made me anxious. I was constantly thinking about other people looking at me, but honestly, people don't really care. It's just in your head. Like, everything that you think people are saying about you exists in your head. So, isolation is very important. And not only isolation, but being able to just like enjoy your own company, being able to do things on your own, not being dependent on someone else, having to talk to someone else, having to spend time with someone else, having to do things with someone else. I've had to learn this year that it's important that I can do it with myself. Number 12, stay out of other people's business. You don't need to involve yourself in other people's business. You don't have to always have an opinion about someone else. You don't have to talk about someone else. Just it's so much more peaceful to just focus on yourself and stay out of everyone else's business. Whatever's going on with other people is their business. It shouldn't affect you. What other people are doing, I'm not saying that people don't affect other people, but whatever's going on with someone else is their business. You don't have to feel the need to mediate or to infiltrate. Just let it happen. Maybe that's what needs to happen to that person at that moment. You can support, you can help, you can guide, but you don't have to be involved. Number 13, do not carry what is not yours. And this kind of leads into what I just said previously. If someone is going through something, now I'm not saying do not be empathetic or do not support people. Not at all. I think it's important to support the people around you, especially those close to you. But you don't have to take on what's going on with them. You don't have to feel the need to carry someone else's burdens or someone else's decisions or situations. You have your own things going on. And There's a lot that you have to sit and deal with. You don't have to feel that you need to do it. And I know that when you're a people pleaser, this is particularly difficult. But you really don't have to. And it doesn't make you a bad person. You don't have to be here in the world carrying everyone's uh, situations or mistakes or burdens. Like, these things happen. You don't have to take it on yourself. You really don't have to. Number 14, don't take everything personally. Not everything is about you. And I think that because of our ego, because a lot of us are, we live in like an egotistic state where we believe that the whole world is revolving around us. And obviously, we all feel that we're the main characters because it's our life. But sometimes what people do, what people say, how people behave is not always a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. So you don't have to take everyone or what they have to say personally. And also, when you don't take things personally, it's so much more peaceful. Honestly, like, everyone is going to have opinions. Everyone is going to have something to say. Everyone wants to involve themselves in your situations. Everyone wants to give their opinion. But you don't have to take it personally. Number 15, trust your intuition. Your intuition, it's not some magic feeling that comes out of nowhere. I really, really needed to learn to trust my intuition this year. It doesn't come out of nowhere. Your intuition is your subconscious. It's your subconscious looking at social cues, looking at the way someone says something, the tone in their voice, their verbal cues. Your intuition is your subconscious protecting you. Your subconscious is seeing things that your conscious cannot. So maybe there's things that you maybe didn't see or you overlook. Your subconscious is not overlooking that, and that is your intuition. So have you ever experienced something where you felt that you shouldn't do something or you should do something, and then at the end of the day it turned out to be right? Majority of the time when you trust in your intuition, it turns out to be right, because it's not something that just comes out of thin air. These are subliminal messages that our subconscious are picking up that is meant to help us. So when people say trust your intuition, you should lean into that. And this year I really had to lean into it, and it helped me trust myself too. Number 16, practicing gratitude is like a life hack. Honestly, when I started practicing gratitude, my life just became better. My perspective became more positive. And there's just this shift when you're grateful or you're practicing gratitude, because you're taking the focus off of all the cons, off of all the negativity, and you're focusing on what you have to be grateful for, what makes you happy. And also, when you practice gratitude, you realize there's a lot of things that you actually have to be grateful for, that you can be happy about. Not everyone is for you, and you are not for everyone. I have an anxious attachment style, so whenever I encounter people, I kind of just want to cling on to them. And I had to learn that it's not the best way forward for me. I had to learn that not everyone is for me, and I'm not for everyone either. There's people that are not going to like me. There's people that are not going to get along with me. There's people that are not going to agree with the opinions that I have or the way that I do things, and that's okay. Like, not everyone is for me, and I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. Don't overestimate a relationship just because you've had it for a long time. Place people where they belong. In my life, I usually put my relationships that I've had for a long time on a pedestal. And in my head, I think that, this is what like such a close relationship. This is one of the people that are close to me because they've been there for such a long time and you've had this relationship for such a long time. But this year, I actually really reflected on the people in my life and the relationships that I have and asked myself, what is this relationship doing for you? And I'm not saying that everything needs to serve you, but I feel that when you have these relationships and connections, they need to add value. I mean, you need to add value and they need to add value too. The relationship should be mutual. But sometimes what I've noticed is I have these relationships, and because I place them of high importance, I invest a lot in this relationship, but there's actually no investment from the other person. And there doesn't need to be, because I am kind of upholding the relationship because I view it as so important. And so this year, I just needed to reevaluate my relationships and look at the people and ask myself, is this relationship mutual? Is this relationship adding value to my life? And then if the person is not actually investing in the relationship, if they're not actually serving me or helping me or being there for me in ways that I need them to be, then just place them where they belong. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to cut these people out, but you don't have to be investing as much into people that don't invest into you. Number 19. This year I realized that I am emotionally unavailable. This is a very difficult realization to make. I always said that I always attract emotionally unavailable men. And then I watched this podcast where this lady was saying that when you attract emotionally unavailable people, 9 times out of 10, you are actually also emotionally unavailable because you are attracting this person that is also emotionally unavailable so that you don't actually have to be vulnerable, because this person will inevitably disappoint you. This person will distance themselves. This person won't give you what you need, so you won't have to get vulnerable with them. And so this year, I've had some encounters in relationships where this kind of became evident that even though I think that I'm ready for something, or I think that I'm giving what needs to be given, I'm not. I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I'm actually really scared of being vulnerable. You know, when you get hurt, and I mean like deeply hurt, as in soul shattering, it's very difficult to get yourself to a point where you feel okay enough to just open yourself up again and be vulnerable, because you don't want to experience that hurt again. You don't want to go through things that you know is traumatic. So this year I needed to actually realize that I am emotionally unavailable, and not just realize it, but do something about it. Even though the thought of being vulnerable again scares me, it's something that I need to do if I'm going to get what I want out of relationships. Number 20. People that make me question or doubt myself are not for me. Usually when I have an encounter with someone and they make me question myself, I would have the thought of, is it a me issue or is it a them issue? But if someone is making me question myself, that person is not for me, because I have good intentions. I'm very self-aware. I think about my thoughts. I think about my emotions. I think about my behavior. I think about how I make other people feel. So if someone is making me question whether I'm being a good person, that person is definitely not for me. Number 21. Do things to help your future self. I think this year, this is such a beautiful lesson for me to learn. Just doing little things to help myself out has made my life so much easier. Like packing my gym bag the night before so that I don't have to do it the next morning and run around and look for time in the mornings. little things, kind of like little acts of service for myself just to make my life better. My love language is acts of service, and usually there's this expectation that other people need to do that for me. But I've learned this year that I should do it for myself too. Why not love myself by using my own love language? Number 22, don't become consumed by the cons of everything. When you have a pessimistic view of life, which is like a pessimistic worldview, and for the longest time I've had a very pessimistic worldview. I think that you tend to focus on all the cons of everything. You tend to focus on the negatives of everything. But once you shift, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't focus on the negatives. If something is making you feel bad or is harmful, you should recognize it and let it help you make a decision. But just focusing on the negatives without even considering the positives. Sometimes in relationships, I have a tendency to just criticize the next person. I'm just looking for all the faults in them. And it does play into the fact that I am emotionally unavailable. So I'm looking for reason to run all the time. But I think it's important to not just focus on the negatives and look at the positives too and share that. I think it's important to let people know how they make you feel. Let people know the good that you see in them. Just recognizing that it's not all about the negatives. You can shift your perspective and focus on the positives. And when you do that, your life just becomes a lot lighter. It's not like so gloomy and doomful, like the universe is out to attack you. It makes you view things with a lighter heart. It's okay to have two or multiple versions of you, and they can all exist. I've battled with having two versions of me. So there's a version of me that I feel is unhealed and is soft and vulnerable and emotional. And then there's a version of me that I feel that I've created to protect that version that is hard, that is selfish, that is not vulnerable at all. Actually, this version of myself I feel is the one that's emotionally unavailable. And for the longest time, I felt that I needed to be one of them. I needed to decide which one is me, which one do I want to take on, which role do I want to play. But I came to realize that it's okay to have both versions. The one was actually created to protect the other one. And one of them, I feel, is actually like what I want to be, how I am at my core. And it's okay that both of them exist. They both can exist. Because they are both part of me. They're both who I am. One is a version of me that was created earlier on in life. The other is a version of me that was created later on in life. But just because they have different timelines doesn't mean that they can't both exist right now. And then number 24, I need to give myself more credit. I am extremely hard on myself, and the people that are very close to me are constantly reminding me of this. I am so hard on myself. And I'm constantly feeling like I need to push myself. I need to have goals. I need to work on myself. I need to just be doing the most. And I constantly am doing the most. And I don't give myself enough credit for just getting through all of them, doing so much, not giving up, constantly working on myself. And celebrating the little wins. I tend to overlook the little accomplishments and achievements that I have made because I just want to be focusing on these big goals and these big things that I need to do. But just giving myself more credit. So that is the 24 lessons that I've learned this year. I hope something resonated with you, or you could maybe relate to some things that I have said. If you liked what you heard or something, you could take something from today's podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next podcast. Bye.